Okay, so today I'm interviewing my brother, Nick Swanson. So if you could start, could you just talk a little bit about yourself and say like what you went to school for and what you're doing now?
Yep. So I'm 24 years old. I went to school at Rochester Institute of Technology for software engineering, and I'm currently working at Ultimate Software as a software engineer for the past about year and a few months.
Could you talk more about like exactly what you do in your job?
Yeah. So as a software engineer, I write code for, I personally work on a lot of internal projects at our company. So we have, for example, one of the products is it's a dashboard like internal website that shows who is on what teams in the company and like who to reach out to for specific things like tech leads and team leads, and then what products are owned by those teams. So internally, like if there's an issue with something, one of the products in like our suite of products that we offer to customers, then you can reach out to like specific people. Um, so I write code for that application and then do like testing on it and stuff like that.
Sorry, I'm just writing notes down. Could you tell me maybe like an example of when something didn't really work out in that aspect of your job or when you like faced a problem in the workplace?
Sure. Let me think for a sec. How how technical should it be?
Something that I can understand.
Okay. Um, let's see. So I guess one problem that I've run into relatively recently, on my team, I handle a lot of things with our Jira board, which is like a process workflow board that um, tasks are put up on, and that's how we track like the completion of certain tasks. So when we start a new project, we create a bunch of tasks, and then they'll get assigned to someone, and then like in our daily stand-up meeting in the morning, um, we go over the tasks that are currently in progress and make sure like no one has issues with them. So sort of a problem that I've run into with that is trying to figure out, how much process to implement, um, because for things that are really short, you don't want to spend, hours of a person's day dealing with getting the process in place and like making sure that there's a story on the board for them. And then it only takes them 5 minutes to complete the thing. So you've essentially spent, 10 times as long setting up the process as it actually took to complete the story. They could have just done it in 5 minutes and it would be done with.
So you kind of um, are trying to decide like what task is more complex enough where it needs to have like a process implemented for it, or if it's like not complex enough, then you skip that step basically and just get it done.
Yeah, yeah, pretty much. So like if there's an issue with one of our services, and someone comes to our team and tells us that they like something's broken, it needs to be fixed. It's hard to figure out what whether it's a big enough issue. So like obviously when someone comes to us, usually we're not just going to be like, "Oh, we know exactly how to fix that right away just based on what you said." We'll be like, "Oh, we didn't know it was broken," you know, because if we did, we'd be working on a fix already. Um, so we have to look into it enough to know whether we need to create a separate task and put some process around it, or if it's something as simple as just like, the storage was full on the server that it's running on. and that's causing an issue. So we just have to delete some of the data on there and then maybe create a task for actually solving the bigger issue of, how it got to that point.
So what's the hardest part about deciding like how complex or how simple like a action is?
Um, the hardest part about it would probably just be so like each person on the team is working on specific tasks already in their daily routine of whatever is assigned to them, and when something comes in, they have to take time out of the task that they're working on to take a look at whether because like if something is it broken for another team and it's blocking them, then that's obviously higher priority than a miscellaneous other task that they're working on for the most part. So it's just trying to figure out whether you should spend the immediate time on it to look at it, or spend time on it, you know, later after what you're already working on.
Sorry, I'm interrupting you.
That's
But
fine.
it can be basically like it can turn into a time consuming process if there's things posted on the Jira and they end up being easy things, then the person pretty much stops what they're doing and it looks at the Jira, and if it's a simple thing it kind of interrupts what they're doing, versus if it needs to be addressed immediately it's more like time consuming.
Well, it's not even as much as if there's a Jira and they look at it, but as soon as it comes in, there's no Jira for it. So whether they should look at it immediately, um, which is time consuming and interrupts what they're currently working on, or have a Jira created for it, which can end up with a bunch of overhead. So it's kind of a trade-off of whether you think it's a small task and you want to just interrupt what you're doing to fix it and get it done, or if you create a Jira for it and it ends up being a small task, now you've spent extra time that you didn't really need to spend on it to, do the process around it.
So why do you think that would be like the hardest part of dealing with the Jira and figuring that out, like for you specifically?
Like why that would be the hardest part of dealing with the problem. You sort of cut out there. Okay. Um,
Oh, I said like dealing with the Jira and what you have to do. Like, why does that make it the hardest part?
okay. I would say that it makes it the hardest part because there's usually not a cut and dry answer that you could put in place. Um, if you if you set up a process around trying to get that perfect, where you're always when it's a small task and you can complete it right away, or you don't, it's not a small task and you have to create a Jira for it, there's not really a cut. It's person dependent a lot of the time too, where one person might be able to complete it really fast, but they're working on something that's higher priority, so someone else needs to complete it, and that person should have a Jira created for it to track their progress on it because it will take longer.
So you're saying that some people might be able, so like if you had a task put in front of you, you might be able to get it done and it might be simpler for you, but if you didn't have time for that and it got pushed to someone else, they might need to create a Jira because it's more of a complex task for them to handle.
Yeah, yeah. Which ideally that shouldn't happen, because usually um, if something's complex enough for anyone to have a Jira for it, it should just have a Jira in general. But that's like one possibility, and then it's also just that you don't know when a task comes in whether it's going to be take a while or not take a while, especially with like for some teams within our company, they have a really set in stone sort of requirements that they have to complete, so you don't end up with a lot of surprises coming in the midst of what they're working on. Whereas my team has just a lot of apps that we're continuously developing on. So some other part of the infrastructure in our organization might make a change, with like how servers are deployed, or like how the like domain naming is set up, so that a URL that used to go to one of our websites no longer goes to it. If something like that comes in, you don't know. It might be as simple as just sending a message to another team and they're like, oh, that's an issue that we did, so we can fix it. Or something in one of our apps is broken and we have to spend multiple days debugging it. And you don't know until you start getting into it. So that's why it's hard to pin down exactly what the estimate on how long it's going to take is.
So have you or someone else like on your team, one of your coworkers, like created or come up with some sort of solution to help this process?
Yeah. So the solution that we're currently going with is that we have an on-call rotation. And it's sort of different from like what you would typically think an on-call rotation is. Like generally that would mean that someone's like 24 hours a day is ready to put out any fires that might come up. But our apps are, for the most part, not that important to like internal structures, where if something breaks, we can usually come in and fix it the next day and it's not a huge issue. Like there's not any customer facing things that they would be out of like our product for a whole overnight period, and it would be a big issue. But pretty much we've put in place a rotation where one person is like on call for the week at a time, and that person is supposed to be fielding all of the issues that come in and determine whether it needs a Jira or it's something that they could personally fix immediately, or if it's better to you know toss it in someone else's court and let them deal with it, because they're more experienced in whatever the app is.
So why might that maybe not completely fix the issue of um, whether a task is too complex or too simple? Like even though you have an on-call person, that probably doesn't completely fix like maybe wasting time over looking at something.
Yeah, definitely. Because so half of our team, I guess not half anymore, but we have like the developers on our team that are on the on-call rotation. Let's say 3 of us have started, in just the last year, and then there's 2 interns, which have also, just been working since the beginning of summer now, I guess. And we have we own probably 12 different internal apps, somewhere around there, give or take. So there's a lot of stuff for everyone to know. And a lot of times when something comes in, whoever's on call is not the expert on it. So there's definitely some, over time, people gradually get more and more knowledge about each of the different apps that they haven't worked on directly. But just because there's so much of sort of a knowledge disparity between team members, just because like no one has the time to be working a lot on every one of our apps. There's not enough time for that. So when something comes in and the person that's on call isn't the expert, they usually have to just defer to someone else to look at it, and or the person that is just already watching the channel and knows stuff about it will look at it already. And that kind of defeats the whole point, because it ends up interrupting that person anyway, even though they're not the on-call person.
Mm-hmm. So pretty much you're facing the issue that, so the Jira board is the workflow board pretty much, and You assign tasks to different individuals on your team. And basically, you're having an issue just because sometimes it's hard to determine whether a task is too complex or too simple, and whether it deserves to be put on the Jira board or if it should just be fixed like within a couple minutes, or if it needs a whole task flow. So you guys tried getting an on-call person, which you're still doing, I'm assuming, to just
Yep.
help make that flow easier for when problems do arise, that they get taken care of as quick as you can. But like you were saying, it's just difficult because sometimes the on-call person doesn't know how to handle it. So then they're still going to have to contact someone else to help them with it, pretty much, right?
Yep.
Okay. So now we're going to switch bases pretty much. And has there been anything like in your personal life or dealing with maybe like the pandemic or any other aspects that have been happening in the world, simple or complex, that maybe you've something that's been like bothering you or annoying you, or something that like you've just been having an issue with?
Sure. How about there's not enough drive-throughs around me.
Really?
Yeah, I wanna go and get some quick drive-through food sometimes, but because like I don't know, I don't want to go in places. It's a little bit different now because everyone's got masks and there's a lot of things in place. But like when this all started and things were pretty much completely shut down, people didn't have masks a lot of times. I don't like I for my own health, I don't want to be walking into a place if I don't have to. I would rather go to the drive-through and get food somewhere. Um, but I only know like 3 drive-through places that are nearby. So,
So, hold on one second. So, is there like a specific time when you were going out and wanted to go to a drive-through and you were like disappointed or upset with a certain like experience that you had that you can remember?
like with where I could go or with the drive-through in general.
Either general or specific.
Okay. I mean, I guess I'm I'm disappointed every time I go out because there's my choices. So my choices for drive-through are like Starbucks, Dunkin' Donuts, McDonald's, or Taco Bell, and that's pretty much it. And I could order, I could get around like the health concerns by getting Uber Eats, but in my mind that's too expensive to justify when I could just drive out and get the food myself.
Right. So what makes this like, what's the hardest part about not having these places around you and accessible?
The hardest part is probably just that I end up eating the same stuff all the time. Like there's not a lot of variety when I am going out to a drive-through. Although it does make me eat more food at home, which is probably good.
What makes that so hard? Like the fact that you don't have many options.
What makes it so hard?
Yeah. Like
Um,
why is that the hardest part, that you don't have the variety?
well, I would like to, I guess I get bored with the same food. Like if I had Taco Bell yesterday, I don't really want to go and have Taco Bell today. I'd
Right.
rather have something different. And my options if I want to eat out is I could get, a burger at McDonald's or I could get a panini at Starbucks, and that's about it.
Really the same.
Hmm.
Um, have you come up with any type of solution? Like, have you thought of driving further to go to better places? And you said like the Uber Eats, but then also you don't want to go into restaurants, which I'm sure there's
Right.
more restaurants, but they don't have drive-throughs, so you don't want to go into them.
Yeah. Yeah, I have thought about driving further, but I would rather not do that. And then also, Like I've looked on Google Maps because it's just really difficult to find whether the place actually has a drive-through. So like Google Maps is good sometimes, but when this started, like if I'm going to get coffee at Starbucks, I wanted to find a drive-through Starbucks, and I wasn't able to find one, and I was only able to know that there was a drive-through Starbucks because someone mentioned it to me that there was a Starbucks that had a drive-through near me.
So then why is that solution like just looking on Google Maps and stuff like that? You kind of touched on it because it's not always accurate, but why is that like not the best solution, or like driving further isn't the best solution?
Yeah, it's pretty much just so driving further, it just takes more time, and that combined with the fact that uh, like you said, the main issue with Google Maps is just that sometimes it'll mention that there's a drive-through. I don't even know if there's a built-in thing, but like I'll see in a review that there's a drive-through or something like that, or like someone commented on the Google Maps listing. So it's just not easily accessible, um, for me to like if I'm on a lunch break, like I don't want to take a ton of time. I'd like to go and get a drive-through meal and then be back at my house to eat it because like I'm working from home. So just the accessibility of the information on Google Maps, and then that combined with I don't want to drive further for something, and then it turns out there isn't a drive-through or the drive-through is closed or something like that, and it's just taking more time out of the limited time that I have to eat lunch.
And you also live in like a place that's much different from here. Like you have huge highways that you're going to be driving on to go somewhere, and it's not as easy as just driving through Olean to go to Wendy's on the other side of town or something.
Right, right. Like the things that are further away from me, for the most part, I have to get on a highway and drive there. Um, or at least that would be the fastest way, unless I want to sit at 15 lights in a row down a one of the smaller roads.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Is there anything else that you would like to add for either of the things that we have discussed today?
I don't think so. I think that's
Okay.
that's probably good.
Well, thank you for doing this interview.
Yep, no
I'm gonna
problem.
I'm gonna stop the recording.
Okay.